I saw that you actually played bass for Fifi Dobson. There's a story here about having a strange audition. Is that true? Can you share that with our listeners?
Yeah, well, it was when I like just moved to Toronto, and I'd been going to the jams and stuff like that, and there was a really good revival jam that had a ton of like the best musicians at the time and singers and stuff like that. And I was terrified of it. I would never get up at that jam, but uh, it was so I wasn't really doing a lot, and I'd heard about the audition because a friend of mine worked at the management company, and I just thought, well, I'll go rent a bass and give it a shot. I've never done an audition before, so why not? And why not give it a go? And I remember calling her up and I'm like, hey, can I get into that audition tomorrow? Like, can you sign me up? And she's like, do you still have your hair? And I was like, yeah. She's like, I don't think that you're really what they want. And then we hang up, and then I go, all right, well, I'll call her back. And I'm like, you know what? Like, whatever. I've never done an audition before. So just give me this stupid CD and let me learn these songs and see what happens. So I get there, I get a ride from another bass player that I knew who was auditioning as well. And it's like just this at the old Rat Space uh, on Geary. And it's just like 15 of like the best bass players in town, and me with this like little rental bass. And it was cutthroat. Like, you know, a guy goes in, I think it was like maybe ninth or 10th out of 16 or something like that. And, somebody goes in, you hear the song going for like a verse, and then they stop it. Next, you hear the next person go in, maybe they get to the chorus, door opens, they're coming out, and it's just everybody before me was just like 2 seconds, two
It's a
seconds, you're gone.
slaughterhouse in there.
Oh yeah, it was really cutthroat. And I'm like, oh man, I'm like, what am I gonna do here? And then it was my turn, and they're like, hey, we know you. You live with. They were friends. I was friends with Clifton David. He was my roommate at the time, and they're like, oh, you're Clifton's roommate. Blah blah blah. And I'm like, yeah, yeah. I just picked up this bass yesterday. I'm not don't really play bass, but I just kind of see if you guys like it. And I ended up getting through the whole first song. I was like, what's going on here? Like nobody had, everybody's kind of shocked. And I'm just like, okay. And they're like, well, do you know the second song? I'm like, yeah, well. And I got through the whole second song. And then they're like, okay, we want you to stick around and play with the drummer afterwards. It's like, wow, okay. And then go back into the hall, and everybody's looking at me like, who the hell is this fucking kid that just he's told everybody he picked up the bass yesterday, and he's sticking around. So I ended up playing with the drummer Colin, and we went through the song a couple of times, and they're like, okay, well, we'll let you know what happens. And then at the time they ended up calling, it was our landline at home, and they're like, is Clifton there? I was like, yeah, okay, hang on. I go get him, and they're like, he gets off the phone, and he's like, I just got asked to play bass for Fifi Dobson because they're like, well, if this kid can do it, then so can Clifton. And I guess they wanted him involved because he was working with the producers on another thing. And then, a couple months later, I'm playing with another artist, and Fifi comes to the show, and she's looking for a bass player again. And she just says, I want that guy in my band. So after that, it was like, then I started playing bass. A couple of years of that. It was kind of a whirlwind sort of thing.
So you
After only a year being in Toronto,
you basically auditioned and got the spot for your roommate.
Yeah.
Has he
And
like taken you
I
out for
eventually
supper or
got
something like to
yeah,
thank you?
no, he never did that. But yeah, but he always wanted to play guitar. He wasn't interested in playing the bass. And then one of the guitar players left, and then he switched to guitar, and they asked me to pick up the bass, which I was fine with. It was a really good experience for me musically to really lock in with bass parts. And I did a lot of work just trying to think as a bass player, not just a guitar player, playing bass. And, I did gigs with a few people in town and stuff like that, and really wanted to, I wouldn't insult bass players and say that I'm a bass player, but I wanted to do a good job.